भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शिन्वितं स्वकतः कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदयन्तस्थो हि अभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सतम्। नष्टप्राये शिवभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैस्तिकी। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 1, verse 16. Mukto pitvad bibhrayat swadeham arabdham asanan abhimanya sunyaha yathanubhutam pratiyata nidraha kimtu anya dehaya gunan navrikte. Synonyms: Muktaha, a liberated person. Api, even. Tavat, so long. Bibrayat, must maintain. Swadeham, his own body. Arabdham, obtained as a result of past activities. Asanan, accepting. Abhimanya sunyaha, without erroneous conceptions. Yatha, as. Anubhutam, what was perceived. Pratyata nidraha, one who has awakened from sleep. Kim tu, but. Anya dehaya, for another material body. Gunan, the material qualities. Na, never. Vrikte, enjoys. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. Without misconceptions, however, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to that karma the way an awakened person regards a dream he had while sleeping. He thus remains steadfast and never works to achieve another material body under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. The difference between a liberated and a conditional soul is that the conditional soul is under the concept of bodily life, whereas the liberated person knows that he is not the body but a spirit, different from the body. Priyavrata might have thought that Priyavrata might have thought that although a conditional soul is forced to act according to the laws of nature, why should he, who was far advanced in spiritual understanding, accept the same kind of bondage and impediments to spiritual advancement? To answer this doubt, Lord Brahma informed him that even those who are liberated do not resent accepting in the present body the results of their past activities. While sleeping, one dreams many unreal things, but when he awakens, he disregards them and makes progress in factual life. Similarly, a liberated person, one who has completely understood that he is not the body but a spiritual soul, disregards past activities performed in ignorance and performs his present activities in such a way that they produce no reactions. This is described in Bhagavad Gita 3.9. Yagnartat karmanyonyato loko yam karma bandhanaha. If one performs activities for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality, the Yajna Purusha, his work does not produce reactions. Whereas karmis who act for themselves are bound by the reactions of their work. A liberated person, therefore, does not think about whatever he has ignorantly done in the past. Instead, he acts in such a way that he will not produce another body by fruitive activities, as clearly mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Mam cha eva vabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitayan brahma bhutaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service who does not fall down in any circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Is 14.26 Bhagavad Gita. Regardless of what we have done in our past lives, if we engage ourselves in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord in this life, we will always be situated in the Brahma Bhuta, liberated state, free from the reactions, and will not be obliged to accept another material body. Tvaktya deham punarjanma naiti mameti. So Arjuna, Bhagavad Gita 4.9. After giving up the body, one who has acted in that way does not accept another material body, but instead goes back home, back to Godhead. Word 17. Bhayam pramatyasya vanveshapi syad yatah sa aste sahasat sapnataha jitendriyasma rater buddhasya Grahasthamahakimnu karoti avadyam. So Sri Narottam Das Thakura has sung Guhraneva Vratte Takte Hak Gauranga Bhale Dhake. Whatever one is situated in the forest or at home, if he is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord Chaitanya, he is a liberated person. Here, this is also repeated for one who has not controlled his senses going to the forest to become so-called yogi is meaningless. Because his uncontrolled mind and senses are going with him, he cannot achieve anything, even by giving up household life and staying in the forest. Formerly, many mercantile men from the up country of India used to go to Bengal. And thus there is a familiar saying, if you go to a Bengal, your fortune will go with you. Our first concern, therefore, should be to control the senses. And since the senses cannot be controlled unless engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, our most important duty is to engage the senses in the devotional service. Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. Bhakti means engagement of the purified senses in the service of the Lord. Herein, Lord Brahma indicates that instead of going to the forest with uncontrolled senses, it is better and more secure to engage the senses in the service of the Lord. Even household life can do no harm to a self controlled person acting in this way. It cannot force him into a material bondage. Srila Rupa Goswami has further enunciated this position. Iha yasya harer dasye karmanya manasagira nikalasva api avastasyu jivan mukta sa uchyate. Regardless of one's circumstances, if one fully engages his activities, mind, and words in the devotional service of the Lord, he should be understood to be a liberated person. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakura was a responsible officer and a householder, yet his service to the cause of the expanding the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is unique. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakura says, Durdyantyedriya Kala Sarpa Patali Praktota Damstrayate. The senses organs are certainly our greatest enemies, and they are therefore compared to a venomous serpent. However, if a venomous serpent is bereft of its poison fangs, it is no longer fearful. Similarly, if the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, there is no need to fear their activities. The devotees in this Krishna consciousness movement move within this material world, but because their senses are fully engaged in the service of the Lord, they are always aloof from the material world. They are always living in a transcendental position. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachyatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Binda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I would like to seek blessings from all the assembled Vaishnavas and thank you for an opportunity to purify myself. And please forgive me for any shortcomings if I made. So, we are in the fifth canto, the Creative Impetus, chapter 1, the activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. So, just to give a quick recap, this chapter describes how King Prithavata enjoyed royal opulence and majesty and then returned to full knowledge. King Priyapata was detached from worldly opulence and then he became attached to his kingdom. But finally, he again became detached from the material enjoyment and thus achieved the liberation. So initially, Priyavata was not interested in material activities and more focused in practicing bhakti yoga. So he got into a dilemma when his father asked to take over the kingdom, what to do. And then while he is meditating, Lord Brahma came and everyone who assembled paid their obeisances. And then Brahma started explaining about the Lord creation and mode of nature, how they bind to the body, and how one has to perform in accordance to the Supreme Lord will. So here in this world, in this verse, Brahma talks about the difference between the conditional soul and a liberated soul. A conditional soul is someone who identifies with the body, thinking, I am this body, these emotions, and these circumstances. And a liberated soul, on the other hand, understands I am not this body, I am a spiritual being distinct from the body. So just to think of it like someone wearing a heavy costume. A conditional soul thinks the costume is their identity. A liberated soul knows that this is just something I'm wearing temporarily. So that's where the conditional soul and the liberated soul thinks. So in the previous verses to the Priyavata's question, if I already understand that I am a spiritual being, why should I accept the same duties and limitations that bind ordinary people? I mean, basically, it is a fair question that can be asked. So, why should someone who is spiritually advanced still deal with the responsibilities, family life, or the results of the past action? So, to address this question, so Lord Brahma explained that even liberated souls accept the results of their past actions, but they do so without becoming entangled again. I mean, here, Prabhupada gave a dream analogy. When we dream, we may experience fear, joy, or confusion. But when we wake up, we don't carry those dream events in our real life. We simply move on. So, similarly, a liberated person sees past actions as dreamlike. They acknowledge them, but they don't let them bind or define them. So, the Bhagavad Gita teaches acting without creating a new reactions in 3.9. Yagnartha karmanyonyartha lokoyam karma bandhana tad arham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed, otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. So, work done for the satisfaction of the Supreme does not produce reaction. So we can think of a simple example here, like, two people doing the same job. Like, imagine two people cooking in a kitchen. One cooks for their own enjoyment, the other cooks as an offering to God. The reaction looks very identical, but the inner intention changes everything. The first person becomes bound by the results, pride, frustration, and desire. And the second person becomes free. Their work produces no karmic reaction. And that is the difference between the a karmic work and a liberated work in a simple way. And Gita also says that in 14.26, one who engages in full devotional service raises above the modes of nature and reaches the spiritual platform. So this means that regardless of our past, if we dedicate our present life to a sincere devotional service, we become spiritually liberated now. We can also think of like a simple example, like a student who has disregarded past, and then he focused, and then he studied well, and immediately in the exam he will get a full score even though he was distracted originally. Similarly, when we engage in devotion, our past no longer dictates our destiny. And this is further like confirmed in Gita 4.9. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tattvaha tvakta deham punarjanma naiti mameti so Arjuna. So one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not upon leaving this body takes his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So in other words, a liberated soul stops reacting new karmic reactions, become free from the cycle of birth and death, returns to their eternal spiritual home. And I will quickly go over the 17th verse. So here, Narottama Dasa Thakura once sang a powerful truth like, whether one lives at a home or in a forest, if he calls out the name of Lord Gauranga, he is liberated soul. This means overturns a common misconception that liberation requires running away from society, hiding in caves, or living in the forest. Real liberation is not about where we live, it is about how we live. So we can simply imagine, like, if someone is addicted to their phone, if they go on a digital detox vacation, but secretly brings the phone with them, nothing changes. The problem travels with them. Similarly, if the mind and senses are uncontrolled, they follow us everywhere, even into the deepest forest. So, the real solution is engage the senses in devotional service. Shastra clearly teaches that Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakter Uchate. Bhakti means engaging the senses in the service of the Lord. We cannot control the senses by force. We can only control them by giving them a higher engagement. So many people think that household life is not a is a household life in an obstacle for the devotional service. But Lord Brahma emphasizes in this verse that even household life cannot harm a self controlled person who engages in devotional service. This was further confirmed by the Rupa Goswami. He says, one who engages his mind, words, activities in the service of the Lord is liberated, regardless of his situation. He also gives an example of Bhakti Vinas Thakura here, like, how he was a family man, how he deeply involved in the society, yet he became one of the greatest spiritual leaders of his time. And his life proves that liberation is not about escaping the responsibility, it is about basically spiritualizing them. And if you think aloud, devotee in the Krishna conscious movement lives in the same world as everyone else. Like, they work together, they interact, they travel, they raise families. But because their senses are dedicated to the Lord, they remain untouched by the material contamination. I think we can thinkly give an example of, like, simple example, like lotus in a water. The lotus grows in a muddy water, yet its petals remains untouched by the mud. Similarly, a devotee lives in the world but stays spiritually pure. I mean, in conclusion, we may have made many mistakes in the past, we may have lived in ignorance, but the moment we choose to act with spiritual understanding, offering our work, our intentions, and our life to the divine, we step onto the path of liberation. The past becomes like a dream, and the present becomes an opportunity, and the future becomes a freedom. And a true liberation is not found in running away from life, it is found in transforming life through devotion. So, control of senses comes from engaging them in service. Liberation comes from remembering the Lord wherever we are. And spiritual life begins not in the forest, but in the heart. So, when our senses serve the divine, we walk through the world fearless, always protected, always uplifted, and always free. With this, I conclude. Vancha Kalpya